Hi, I'm Jim Watson, and I've been a SAS trainer since 2003. A while ago, I delivered a webinar on date and time values in SAS. Here is some interesting content from that webinar. I hope you enjoyed this clip. Have a great day. Let's get to the main issue though. How are they stored in the first place? It's vital that you understand this to make sure that you treat the dates appropriately, because ultimately SAS doesn't even have a date type or a time type or a datetime type. The secret behind SAS time values is they're all stored as numbers, but different numbers based on different circumstances. And of course, this presentation does cover SAS via. The same principle applies to CAS tables, which you'll find there, that's Cloud Analytics Services. That would be, they're all stored as numbers regardless of the type of table involved. But of course, just storing your dates or date times as numbers is not exactly human readable. So mostly you display them through the lens of a SAS format, either something you chose from our extensive catalog of pre-built SAS formats or something that you generate yourself. Now, we'll start with dates because of all the time-based types in a SAS system, these are by far the most popular. For instance, a SAS date, by the way, is stored just as regular integers. This is because you can't have part of a date, but it's still stored as a numeric value like all dates, times, and date times are in a SAS system. Now, that means that there's got to be some sort of pivot date, which we call the SAS epoch. That's the 1st of January 1960. And therefore, all dates, when they're stored as numbers, are actually stored relative to this particular date. So if the numbers are negative, they would be prior to the 1st of January 1960, positive numbers would be after it, and 0 would be the SAS epoch date itself. And of course, you got to be careful about this because you're allowed to apply a date time format or a datetime function to a date, but the outcome will be unrealistic. It will be wrong and you won't get an error. So do make sure you only use date formats for dates and date functions for dates. Otherwise, the values you get will be misleading, to say the least. So now date times are stored in a slightly more complex way, still as numbers, but these are real numbers, otherwise known as floating point numbers. And also that what they represent is different. It's still relative to the SAS epoch, but it's also relative to midnight on that day. And that's because SAS date times, as well as times, are actually stored as a number of seconds, or part thereof, relative to midnight, the 1st of January 1960. And they even have a precision up to 4 decimal places, so that can store accurately up to 1/10,000th of a second. But just like with dates, you have to use the appropriate functions and formats. And it's especially crucial because if you applied a date format to a date time, it would probably tell you that the date was somewhere in the beginning of 1960, which will, of course, would be wrong. That's because of a misunderstanding about the format and the function. So do make sure you use the right formats and right functions on your date times. Otherwise, the values you get will be misleading, to say the least. Now, times, by far the least commonly used, but still a valid time format. These are just a period of elapsed time for up to a given day. So it's only really 1 day's worth of values, but they're still stored as floating point numbers, which means they have the same precision as date times. The number of seconds relative to midnight with up to 4 decimal places precision. And of course, just like with dates and date times, you have to use the right format and functions upon them, or else, again, the results are misleading. Are they precise? Well, let's take a deeper dive on that one. The answer actually depends on the overall range. You see, here's the theoretical range of dates and date times in the SAS system. It began in the year 1582, because that's the year where the Gregorian calendar was adopted to replace the original Roman calendar because of its inaccuracy relating to agriculture and, of course, Easter calculations. And, of course, date times, same range, except it's midnight on both days. So it's a pretty impressive range, I think you agree. 1582, where the current calendar began, all the way to the year of 20,000. But that's not completely precise. And that's because occasionally adjustments are made to the calendar. So therefore, we advise you to stick within this range, 1st of September 1742 to the end of the year 4000. This guarantees that all the date functions that we're going to be discussing work correctly.